Okay, all our parts are on the board. We need to look into the process of putting the copper on the board so that we can have connections between all these devices on here. So we'll start off right away. I'm just going to come to Route, Auto Route, and Auto Route All. We're just going to route this quickly and let this machine do it for us as a sample so we can see what it looks like. Here's the routing strategies. This is a default 2-layer board. If I had a multi-layer board, a 4-layer board, I might want to use this one. If I had edge connectors, I might use this one. There's several different strategies, so we can try them at different times to see if it helps route our boards cleaner or with less errors. So I'm going to tell it route all. And here you see it routed, and it says routing finished with 0 contentions, failed to complete 0 connections, less than a second. Now, a contention is when you're trying to get this trace over the top of this one on the same layer. So if this was a bottom layer and it was going across that one, they would touch. That would be a contention. It'll also tell me if it doesn't route any of the layers. So let's take messages and pin it right there. Oh, you see my routing. Everything's here. Everything's connected. I do notice that these traces are fairly thin. They're only 10 mils. We can always double click on a trace and we'll get the properties. So here I can look at it, right? Here's my net, it's ground, right? My layer is the top. The width is 10 mils. A mil is 1,000th of an inch, so it's 10,000ths of an inch. Fairly small, probably not the smartest thing. So let's come up here to route and tell it unroute all. And we're going to start looking at some rules that we might want to use. So I'm going to come to Design and Rules. And under Design Rules, you'll see all these options. There's clearance, there's width, right? So under routing, I have width. If I click on width, you'll see that it says minimum width, preferred width, right? Maximum width is all 10. Maybe I want my traces to be heavier. So I'm going to tell this, I want it to be 20. I want all these to be 20. I want heavier traces to make my board a little more robust. And I'll say apply. Let's close the rules. And now we can route again, but I'm going to show you another way to route. Right here on our toolbar, it says interactively route. So if I come to my top layer, select my top layer down here on the bottom left, and tell it interactively route, I can tell it route from here to here. Now if I try to route to here, notice I can't route there. I can't route there because this net doesn't go to that node, but I can route here. So I come here and I route. I can see those traces are heavier, right? Heavier than before. If I click bottom layer and tell it to route, I get the same function. Only now you'll see the color changed. You'll see on this bottom left, top layer is red, bottom layer is blue. So this is how you hand route. And on bigger designs and complicated designs, you definitely want to hand route. It's usually much cleaner, and you can guarantee your nets are going where they want to go and you don't miss anything. In a project like this, I can tell it to auto route and it'll be okay. I can tell it auto route all. It's just going to route them all for me. See, all the traces are bigger now. That makes my board a little more robust. So I'm now going to undo to get rid of that routing. And we're going to look at some more rules, some more options. I told it the thickness I wanted here under the rules, right? The width of my trace. But let's look at the schematic side where I have some more options. I'm going to tell it to place a directive. And what kind of directive do I want? A parameter set. Now, before I place it, I'm going to hit Tab to get the parameters, right, the properties. And here it says Rules. I'm going to add a rule. And here under my routing and under my electrical, I can tell it what I want to do. So I want to do a width constraint rule. And what rule do I want for that one? I might want my ground to always be 30 mils. So I've set this parameter set, and I'm going to put it here, which is a ground node. So now my ground has this parameter set. I'll save it, design, update my document, and I'm updating a rule change, execute, close. So now I'm going to auto route all, and let's take a look. Oh, I see now I have different size traces. If I click my signal trace and get the properties, 20 mils like I asked it to be. If I look at my ground trace, 30 mils. So now I've changed my rules, and I've changed my routing rules independent of whether I'm at the schematic side or the PCB side. I'll do a file save all here. So there's a couple of ways to change rules, right? I can change it on the PCB side. I can put a directive from the schematic side. All right, I want to show you a couple of more options, how you can modify your board. If I select top layer down here, select this trace, move this trace over a little bit, just like that. Now, if I double click on that trace, you'll see just that piece. I can come up here and tell it, I want you to be on the bottom layer. And look what's happened. That segment of that trace is now in the bottom, but I have no connection between the bottom and the top here. So to get a connection, you'll see up here on my toolbar it says place via. A via is a little hole in the board, and on outside manufactured boards, they'll plate the hole through so you can get a connection from the top and the bottom. On our equipment here on campus, we can't plate the holes through, so you have to put a little wire through there to get the connection. But I'm going to tell it I want to place a via. So tab, I don't know what net this via is to start with, right? It says no net at all, but I want this to connect these two traces. So this is the plus 12 volt net. I'm going to hit net plus 12 volts. So now I have a 12 volt net via. If I come right here, hook it right in, you can see now that my trace comes off the bottom, goes through the via, comes up on the top, goes to this capacitor. So I had an option there to do that. I didn't need to, but I wanted to show you how you can change layers, add a via. So when you're hand routing and doing things like that, you have a lot of options to do that. Now let's look at a trick. If I'm looking at my board here, it looks fine, right? I can see it. I can see through it, but what does it look like in 3D? If I hit the number 3 key, I'll get a 3D view. The 3D view, if I hold my shift key down, I can use my right mouse button and rotate this guy around. There's what the back of the board looks like, the front of the board. There's the via that I added. If I rotate this over, you see the trace coming across. Goes to the via, comes to the top, continues through. So the 3D view can be handy. There's a 3D model for this part. I don't have, and this resistor, I don't have 3D models for the caps, so that you don't see them here. When I'm done with that, I can hit 2, the number 2 key, go right back to my same view. That way I can see it in the mode that I'm used to, and I can route in this mode.